It's now a privilege to introduce Dr. Jonathan Woodson, the Assistant Secretary for Defense for Health Affairs, chosen by the graduating class to be their graduation speaker. Dr. Woodson is the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense on health issues. He directs the entire U.S. military medical enterprise, which includes the care of wounded service members, the basic health care for approximately 10 million active and retired service and family members through TRICARE. He also sets medical health standards for enlistments and deployments, develops health and medical policies, and oversees the Uniformed Services University for Health Sciences. Prior to being named Assistant Secretary for Defense, Dr. Woodson served as Professor of Surgery at Boston University School of Medicine and Associate Dean for Diversity and Multicultural Affairs. He significantly increased the enrollment of underrepresented minorities and directed our early medical selection program and our minority student summer program. Dr. Woodson.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be back here at BU. There's no doubt about that. And thank you, Dean Antman, for that overly kind introduction. You know, it's the kind of introduction that if my dad were alive and here today, he would love to hear, but only my mother would believe. And I know there are a number of parents out here who can understand that statement. Well, faculty, distinguished guests, family, friends, and most importantly, Boston University School of Medicine graduates of 2014. It's an honor and privilege to be here today and celebrate your achievements and this milestone in your lives and your careers. First, I want to acknowledge your hard work and the commitment of the faculty in preparing you academically for your bright futures. But most importantly, I want to recognize the sacrifice and support of your parents and families, without whom little is possible, but with them, all things are possible. Please give them another round of applause. They deserve it. It is both exciting and humbling for me to be here today with you in this Boston University community where I've spent so much of my professional life and around people I admire and love. Some 40 years ago, I began my journey in this career, and I recently attended my 35th anniversary, medical school anniversary, which necessarily forces one to reflect on their own career and ask the sobering question, how did I get to this fill in the blank old? My daughter was all too happy to help me do the math. Now, I want to pause for a second here and give you what we call in the Pentagon the bottom line up front. It's the bottom line of my message here today because I recognize in a couple of years you won't remember who gave your commencement address, and you certainly won't remember the details of what I have to say. So on this rainy Saturday morning, before you contemplate the back of your eyelids, that means slip off into sleep, let me outline 3 points I hope you'll retain, reflect upon, and perhaps use as a guide in the future. First, you truly will not be successful in life or your careers unless you work to establish balance. Nurture mind, body, and spirit in equal amounts and strengthen mutually supportive relationships. The balance will make you resilient when tough times come, and tough times will come, and allow you to remain enthusiastic about your life and careers. Balance will also permit you to see more clearly how to make your unique and meaningful contributions in life. Second, what you do with your career in medicine and research will make a profound difference. It may impact one patient at a time, or through your efforts in teaching, research, or public health, impact whole populations or generations to come. Medicine and research remain some of the most consequential career paths that exist. What you have committed to doing with your professional lives will matter, and will matter greatly. Lastly, you cannot achieve your full potential as physicians or scientists unless you add to your toolkit solid leadership skills which need to be actively developed and exercised. Our country and world will always be in need of good leaders who know how to establish a vision for a better tomorrow and can motivate others to work toward a common goal. Now, with that out of the way, for those of you who need to sleep into stage 1 or stage 2 sleep, go right ahead. Someone will surely nudge you when this is all over. You know, someone once said that life is what happens when you're otherwise making plans. I have found this to be true time and again, and it expresses the need in life to expect the unexpected. Each of you need to be prepared to negotiate around obstacles even as you keep your eye on the prize or those long-term goals that you have set for yourself. It is important to understand that the deviations are the friction points in life that when we learn the most about ourselves and we grow. If life was always a smooth path from point A to point B, it would be dull and predictable. Deviations and the challenges they present to us are the experiences that create novel situations which allow us to build our toolkits to be truly successful in life. And remember, as it said, life is about the journey. The destination is important, but the road trip is what is often remembered and cherished. Forced deviations from our path allow us to examine the importance or value of those things we seek in life, whether they are material things, jobs, positions, or the people in our lives. They will often bring a focus to the value of our personal relationships and the need to nurture these relationships and maintain these connections. Deviations from plans create space and perspectives that allow us to rebalance our lives. It may put you outside of your comfort zone, but that is where the most growth will occur. So as you sit here, perhaps nervous about starting that internship or that postdoc fellowship, be aware that that uncomfortable feeling is good, and you should seek to be slightly out of your element on a regular basis. Occasionally deviating from the beaten path will help uncover your best potential. If you commit to blooming where you're planted, you will most likely be successful. Over the course of my life, I've taken a number of deviations, often in form of the military service or public service, in support of contingency operations domestically and abroad. Whether I traveled to Europe, Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, Central America, or elsewhere, the interruptions in my private life, while difficult at times, have provided me with new skills, experiences, valued colleagues, which I've leveraged later in life. I came away with a larger view of the world and life and the potential for making important contributions that I otherwise would not have considered, to include this current job I have as Assistant Secretary of Defense. While I do not mean to be depressing, you need to recognize that one day you will awaken middle-aged and in fact receive that notice of your reunion. Mark my words, success at that time will not solely be defined by the number of papers published or financial success, but by your children, relationships, and the impact you have had on other people. As previously noted, medicine and research can have profound effects. Twice in my life, I have stood on the battlefield as nations have gone to war. And war, I can attest to, is the dark side of humanity. But having had the experience to work as a physician and leader in war, I also know that medicine represents the hope and the light. Medicine helps restore some sense of humanity to inhumane situations. The experience emphasizes the importance of one's own family and individual professional contributions. The unscheduled detours in my life have helped shape my vision of success in this career and helped me develop tools to be resilient. Now, a few days ago, I returned from my 7th journey to Afghanistan. As I traveled throughout the country making my assessments on the adequacy of health service support, gathering the lessons learned from 12+ years of war, and evaluating the host nation health capacity and capabilities, I was moved by the commitment of the U.S. military, our NATO partners, the non-NATO nations, and the non-governmental organization medical communities that have come together to support the singular mission of improving health and the system of medical care in this war-torn country. Medicine, with its universally shared commitment to preserving and improving lives, was the common language spoken. The combined efforts has taken essentially an 18th century society and established a 20th century healthcare system which now can boast and show a reduction in maternal child mortality and an increase in life expectancy despite the war. Hospitals I visited previously in years gone by, which should not really have been classified as such, now demonstrate organized systems of care and remarkably upgraded provider skills. In 2 weeks, I'll go to South Africa as one of the U.S. government's principals for the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR. Maybe some of you have heard about this program. The program was created by a Republican President Bush with bipartisan support from Congress and renewed commitment by President Obama. It broke the mold on how we tackle a devastating disease which threatened the very foundations of societies. AIDS in Africa created millions of orphans, stalled economic development, and fomented instability in nations which could have led to war. Today, AIDS is no longer a certain death in sub-Saharan Africa, and we now see evidence of some prospering nations with no longer in need of the program and able to manage their own public health issues and concerns. This is success. To be sure, there's much work to be done, but now the focus is on creating an AIDS-free generation rather than just preventing some societies from becoming extinct or collapsing. The work of researchers, clinicians, and leaders of all stripes working together to envision a better tomorrow has brought about this change. We have moved from desperation to hope. In my current position, I have the privilege of working, advising, and listening to many of our national leaders, including the President, the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Chairman, and members of Congress. All recognize the value of global health engagement as an evolving and important tool of national, albeit soft, power that builds bridges and rapport with all segments of the world. Developing nations, our allies, and potential adversaries. More and more routinely, I meet with foreign ministers and surgeon generals to discuss various issues, including the Chinese, which have been in my office on 2 occasions. And they are interested in partnering with the United States around issues of health care, and humanitarian assistance. Global health engagement may very well be the activity that helps prevent the next war, as it maintains the focus on humanity, not power, death, and destruction. Global health engagement is no longer a nice thing to do. It is an essential part of a national security framework. Today, there are health threats that could destabilize nations and societies from many vantage points. And believe me, I know this when I get my security briefing every day. Infectious disease threats like MERS and pandemics. Whether we are talking about the public health consequences of climate change, HIV in developing countries, or hundreds of other potential health scenarios, the security threats from health catastrophes are real. And the spillover effects from breakdowns in health systems can be harder to contain than armed conflicts themselves. This is now well recognized throughout government, and as a consequence, health issues are no longer restricted to discussions among health professionals or scientists. It's a topic of grave importance to all of our agencies. Whatever role in health as a researcher, clinician, or teacher you now have a broader voice, and you need to exercise that, and a perspective that must be heard. So the bottom line again, medicine matters, research matters. What you choose to do in medicine and research will matter in both small and more profound ways. Now, it should be evident to all that medicine can be a powerful agent for positive change in the world. However, graduates, your technical and scientific insights alone will not produce that change. It will be your ability to combine these skills with leadership attributes that will move the ball significantly. The world is a volatile, complex, uncertain, and ambiguous environment, or VUCA as we call it in the Pentagon. Today's and tomorrow's leaders must be comfortable working in this so-called VUCA environment and be able to provide clear vision and direction when all seems gray and murky. To be able to do this, you must persistently pay attention to the development and refinement of your leadership skills and ability. Seek to exercise good leadership in whatever role you play, from intern, postdoc, to more senior positions throughout your career. Leadership is active and not passive in defining and controlling the future. Leaders build highly effective teams to solve complex and difficult problems. Good leaders are rarely reactive and never custodians of the status quo. In order to be a good leader, you must first know yourself and deeply understand your values and nurture your values. It will be those values that will act as a compass to allow you to navigate out of the fog. There are many important values such as duty, honor, integrity, and respect, but don't neglect selfless service, meaning you don't have to get paid for everything, and personal courage, which means standing up for someone or something even when it will cost you personally, because these are the values that take the most work to acquire, refine, and demonstrate with a reflex. Leadership can be exhausting at times, but this gets us back to balance, and it allows us to renew and recharge. So as each of you graduates sit here today with bright promise for tomorrow and the future, I want you to know this. Each of you will have an opportunity to make a tremendous positive impact on humanity as you apply compassion, intelligence, clinical and scientific skill with true leadership to remit suffering and ameliorate disease. Remember, medicine is fundamentally a human endeavor. It will be your abilities to influence others, whether they are your patients, your teachers, other leaders, or people that make up our societies, institutions, and our government, that will define the magnitude of your contributions in your career and life. I wish you all great success in your personal and professional lives in the future. I welcome you all as colleagues in serving the health needs of this nation and the world. Thank you very much for having me back here at BU, and my best wishes to all of you in your chosen career.